Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Andrew, this is Katie, and we've decided to host this FAQ tonight because a couple things are going on. First, we opened applications for our 2026 trips yesterday. We had office hours last week, but Katie, I think your slots fill pretty quickly, and mine did too. And this was a chance just for one-on-one meetings with people if they had questions about our trips or about their particular application. And then the final thing is that our website is very comprehensive and thorough, but it can also be a little intimidating if you haven't dug into every single page. So we thought we would just offer this video, which is sort of like so you can passively consume all the program information. This presentation is going to run for like 60 minutes. We'll just stop it at 60. We're doing this for you. Katie, I don't hear or see Troy in your background. I'm not sure if you can hear Amanda making my dinner, but in both of us, we've been working all day. But again, we're here for you. So your questions are kind of will help drive this event. We have an agenda and have some things that we'd like to go through, but we're mostly here to answer your questions. So a couple of reminders before we get going. We have another live stream next week. It's with Ake Schindel, who's a multi-time alumni, and he's going to be talking about, or a multi-time alumnus, and he's going to be talking about his through hike of the Appalachian Trail back in 1986. I've seen the slides; they're fantastic.
It's going to be
He's a
so
very
good.
good storyteller, so I think it's going to be a really fun event. I'm looking forward to it. That's one application. One reminder. Second thing is that right now it is open application for our 2026 trips. So this is a 2-week period that we do every December. And all the applications that we get at this time, they're all considered equally. It's not like first come, first served for our trips. So you can apply through December 21st, which is a Sunday, to be in this pool. We have an early bird incentive of $100 off any trip if you apply at this time. And you'll also be entered to win a Durston Gear backpack for all the early entries. Get into the meat of the content?
Yes, we should. Let's get going. Yeah, do you want me to kick it off with an overview of our program and you think like what defines our program, or do you want to take
I think people would love to hear you.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna start with a little overview of some of the key points that we think define our program and what sets us apart from other guided trip services that you might be considering. So one of the things that we specialize in is modern backpacking gear and techniques. We also specialize in off-trail travel and long-distance hiking. That's the background of many of our guides as long-distance hikers, in addition to being outdoor educators. And all of our trips are education focused, and they have a high level of adventure to them, which is a little bit different than some other operations that you might consider a guided trip with. We also offer a 10-week planning curriculum. So this is part of our mission to be like an education focused company. And we're going to talk later in the presentation about what that curriculum entails. But essentially it's designed to teach you a planning process that you can repeat for your own trips, not just the trip that you're going to be taking with us. And then we may be a little bit biased, but we think that we have the best guide team on the planet. And we'll talk a little bit about them later.
So I'm not hyperbolic, and I choose my words carefully.
That's true.
And I actually feel like I would qualify it as something with the best backpacking guide team on the planet. But I've never come across another organization where I'm like, oh, well, yeah.
It's perfect for what we offer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes, and so how we're different from other guided trip services is that we are not offering tours. So we don't do the same set route every single year or in each location. It's really cool actually as a guide and as a client, because a lot of times the guides may not have even been on all portions of your route. So you're getting to have that sense of discovery together and learn how you might do that on your own trip. And then we are, so again, kind of feeding into that, it's very client led. So in the spirit of not doing tours, our routes are driven by the fitness of the group, the conditions, and then also the interests of the group. And so that's something that we talk about every day and determine our route together. So usually groups will receive a proposed route and then we will refine it on the ground. And the last thing I think that sets us apart is that we try very, very hard to match groups, client groups, in terms of both fitness and experience. And so we don't just take the first 8 paying clients who want to go to any given location for a set number of days. We have a pretty extensive application process that allows us to sort people into well-matched experience levels and fitness groups. And the reason that that matters so much is that it just creates a better experience for everyone. So no one in the group is going to be way too far behind or way too far ahead, and you're surrounded with team members who are usually of a similar experience level as you. Would you like to talk about the application process?
Sure can, yeah. So as I mentioned at the top, so right now we're in this open application period, and we do things a little bit differently than the way that probably most organizations would. Effectively, if you apply right now during these first 2 weeks, effectively you are expressing interest in the trips that we have proposed for the 2026 season. And then we take all of those applications and we look at where the interest is, and then we use that to, on a granular level, decide exactly what our trips are going to be. So for example, based on historical demand and like historical operations, we expect in, say, Utah, for example, we're going to be running 4 to 6 5-day trips in session 1. But this year we have offered a couple of different versions. So for example, there's a beginner level 5-day trip. There's an intermediate level 5-day trip. There's what we're calling a trip leader course, which Katie and I will likely be guiding. And then we're also offering like a canyoneering 5-day trip, all in that session 1. And then we'll look at the applications, and if there is a lot of interest for some of those trips and not a lot of interest for the others, then we'll go ahead and modify our schedule to make sure that we can accommodate the most amount of people and try to sort of like optimize our schedule around what the demand actually is. We expect to offer all spots for our 2026 trips at the beginning of January, and based on the applications that we've received so far, Katie, I think we haven't said this explicitly in a meeting, but I think the expectation is that all of our trips, like every single trip, will be full in the first week of January.
Yeah.
There is opportunity to jump in later. We do get cancellations. There are people who decline our offer to have a spot on one of our trips just because something happens between now and the beginning of January, or they're just going to get cold feet. So there's an opportunity to jump in later, but this is definitely your best chance of this. This is definitely the best time to apply, because you have your best chance of getting on your top choice trip.
Yep. All right, let's cover some trip basics. Andrew, maybe I can start talking about the trip types, and you can share your screen to show people where on the website they might find more information about each of these items. So this evening we'll give an overview of these different categories, and then we'll show you where on the website you can dive deeper if you want to learn a little bit more. So as far as we're going to talk about a few things in terms of trips. So the types of trips, we'll talk about our signature series, and then we'll go into each of our locations. So as far as trip types, we have 3 what we're calling like classic trip types. And these are specifically related to your level of backpacking experience. And we really, as I mentioned, try to separate backpacking experience from fitness level. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And you'll hear us repeat that, but it's something that is different than other places. And it's a little bit hard for people to remember that when they're applying for our trips. But we offer several of our different trip types, fundamental, adventure, and expedition, in all different fitness levels, as long as we have enough interest. So as far as those 3 trip types, we have the fundamentals, which is for beginner backpackers. And we would consider a beginner anyone who has less than like 20 nights of experience in the backcountry would be a beginner. And so maybe not, new to the backcountry, but just maybe have a couple like overnighters under your belt. And then our adventure category is the biggest category of trips. And these include our 5 and 7 day trips. And these are for intermediate backpackers. And then last, we have our expedition level trips. And these are for advanced level backpackers. And that's so folks we would consider advanced would be people with over 50 nights in the backcountry. And ideally, they'd have some off-trail experience as well. And we have a matrix, I think it's on that page, correct, that shows how to categorize yourself. So if you have, yeah, right there, perfect. So yeah, less than 20 nights of experience, you'd be in the fundamentals. 20 to 50, you'd be in that adventure level, and then 50 plus, you'd be in that expedition level. And it will give you all sorts of details about what to expect on that type of trip in terms of like client to guide ratio, fitness levels, etc.
And this chart, these are guidelines. We regularly make exceptions to this, both up and down. So if someone has, say, like, let's say someone has spent 19 nights and they were all on like doing a John Muir Trail through hike,
right?
That's probably going to bump you up into the adventure level. Whereas if it's 19 nights, all like 1-night trips, and like none of them,
or maybe they were
kind of
3
like
decades
in a local
ago.
state park kind of thing, then that's going to be maybe a different classification.
Yes.
Okay, so in addition to having these classic, these like 5-day beginner, 5 and 7-day intermediate level, and then 7 and 11-day advanced level, we also offer a couple like what we're calling kind of like specialty trips. So those are going to start at the level 2, so intermediate level. And the first one is this trip leader course. This is new for 2026. Katie and I will be guiding it. And this is going to be ideal for, as we say right here, so anyone who's planning on leading small groups of family, friends, scouts, or informal clubs. This is not going to be like some kind of like guide certification course, but what we plan to do is focus on helping you gain the hard technical skills that are appropriate for an intermediate level backpacker, but we're maybe more than that going to focus on the softer skills of how to manage or how to lead a group. So communication, problem solving, risk management. Katie?
Those are big ones.
Yeah,
transparent decision making with the group.
Yeah. And then we're strongly encouraging anyone who wants to take that course to also take the wilderness first aid course. That's immediately the day prior. So it's basically like a 6-day experience. Second specialty trip, we call it the naturalist trip. Most of our trips, in fact, all of our other trips focus on we tend to be pretty like movement oriented. This one is not. This one is like, hey, let's learn about the rocks and the birds and the trees and the plants, and let's stop and for hours watching like wildlife through our binoculars, and let's take good photographs. So it's a more casual experience. I think more like contemplative might be the right word. And we're offering this trip in both Utah and in Yellowstone. It's a 5-day in Utah, and it's a 7-day in Yellowstone. The next type of trip is our technical canyoneering courses. These are like ropes, harnesses, helmets. You still need to be a good backpacker, but the more important thing is that you're comfortable with heights and exposure. And this is someone who either just wants to go technical canyoneering or who wants to learn that skill so that they can apply it on their own personal trips. Okay, then that brings us to our signature series. So signature series, this is like another whole category of trips. With all of our other trips, what we do is we create a group and then we create an itinerary around that group that's appropriate for them. So for example, if it's like a median level group, we're going to expect that group to hike about 15 miles per day, and we'll create a route that's appropriate, that's like suitable. With the signature series, it's the opposite, where we identify a route that we'd really like to do, and then we're looking for 7 to 8 people who are willing to do it with us. So this year we have, can you help me out? The signature series trips, there's a 7-day canyoneering 201 course.
Yep.
There's a 7-day backpacking trip that just has a lot of like non-technical scrambling and route finding on it, also in southern Utah. There's the 7-day peak bagging trip in the High Sierra. There's the 11-day Yosemite High Route or Kings Canyon High Basin Route or Sierra High Route, depending on whichever we get permits for. And then in Alaska, there's an 11 and a 7-day trip on the Gates of the Arctic High Route, the acronym for which is GAR. So those are the signature series trips this year.
I wanted to mention there were 2 other like specialty trips that I don't think we mentioned, and we tested these out last year and they were very well received. So we're bringing them back this year, and that's all women's trips and 55 plus trips. And the all women's trip we were doing in the Sierra this year, And then the 55 plus trips we have in session 3 of Utah, and then also session 3 of California. So,
yeah. So here's, for anyone interested, the 55 plus in Utah or in the session 3. We're offering it both in both or one of either fundamentals or adventure level. And then in California, we have the all women fundamentals level and adventure level in session 1 and the 55 plus in session 3.
All right.
Okay, let's move
Andrew, yes, if I want to learn about our core locations, where on the website
yes.
would I go to see that?
Core locations. So if you've been to the website on a desktop, it's really easy to navigate. Yeah, as the website is definitely more desktop friendly, like computer friendly than mobile or tablet, although it definitely works on those other devices. So if you want to go to locations, and then within here, we have 4 different locations this year. We're going to Southern Utah, we're going to Alaska's Brooks Range, High Sierra, California, and Greater Yellowstone. Our core locations for 2026, they're definitely these first 3. We are only offering 1 trip this year in Yellowstone. That's going to be a naturalist 7-day trip. So we have been going to these locations for a long time, and we feel we've experimented with many others. Let's see, do you want to try to give you the full list of trips where I've run before?
Yes, let's hear it.
Pisgah National Forest, North Carolina, Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, White Mountains in New Hampshire, Big Bend National Park in Texas.
I didn't know that.
Porcupine Mountains in Michigan. Rio Grande National Forest. I'm sorry, Rio Grande, National Forest in Colorado. Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado. Let's see. Olympic National Park in Washington. I think that might be it. And we have settled on these. And we have settled on
Dolly Sods in West Virginia.
Well, yeah, right, Dolly Sods. Yeah. We're still kind of inactive, but we just haven't run it in a few years.
Yeah.
But these are the 3 locations that we keep coming back to because we think that for our program, they are the perfect match. They're huge. There's a lot of off-trail travel. They're very aesthetically pleasing. We can kind of create a calendar around them too. There's like each one of them has a prime season, and none of them are mutually exclusive with each other.
Yep. And I would encourage folks, if you're having trouble choosing between the different locations that we have, if you click on those squares or the red arrows in there to get more information, it lists out the experience that you'll have there. It lists the different trip types that we run in those locations, what the location highlights are, and then it talks about how clients have rated in the past, as well as what you will experience in that location. And then I really like those two. Like if you just want a quick bullet summary at the bottom, things that are maybe like the pros of the location and things that folks are usually challenged by in those different locations. So you can read through those and self-assess how you do with the conditions and what most appeals to you and what most repels you, I guess, from each location. All right.
Let's move on to fitness levels.
Yes.
Okay, so we have trip types based on experience level. We have different trip locations. And then finally, we also have different fitness levels. And we have 5 different fitness levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or basic, moderate, median, high, and ultra. And we have these fitness levels because, as Katie mentioned earlier, it's one of the things that separates our program from most others, that we're trying to create like-abled groups. So no one at the front is frustrated. No one at the front is frustrated by the slow pace. No one in the back is feeling bad about themselves. And when there's a decision to be made about how much effort the group is going to sort of endure or incur, and then what kind of risk appetite they have, usually our groups are pretty similar in that decision. So we don't have to separate our groups, and there isn't that tension. This page it's thorough and it's comprehensive, and it probably has a little bit more detail than it should, but welcome to our program. And welcome to in my mind.
Inside of Andrew's brain, yes.
And we definitely, hear people like vacillating between like, oh, you know, am I moderate or am I median, or like I just don't know. So when you're applying, if you're not sure, like just take your best guess at it and pick the one that you feel like is most appropriate, and then supply us in your application on the specific questions where we ask with like good data or information that we can use to also assess you. So like, because what we do is like we have our internal assessment of you, and then we compare that to what you think. If there's an inconsistency there, we'll double check it to see what's going on. So just, Katie, how many applications last year did you review?
Oh gosh, at least 500.
Yeah, it was like 600 and change.
Yeah, I would say well over 500. Yeah.
and like in Katie's lifetime, she's probably seen, I don't know, 1,300 applications. I am also at that level. So we see a lot of applications, and this process is very thoughtful. Just trust it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about what a typical day might be like on one of our trips. And this is also on the website under the itineraries tab. So a typical day will vary slightly depending on whether you're in the lower 48 or on a trip in Alaska. However, I could say roughly what it might look like on one of these trips. So the guides, and it will depend on your guide team, the structure of the day, as well as the clients and what you all decide on. But generally, you're going to get started, say, meeting for breakfast sometime around 7-ish, 7:30 in the morning, and you'll have breakfast together, and then everyone will finish their packing up, and I'm just gonna say usually this is how it goes. And then you'll do a map briefing together where you're gonna talk about the plan for the day, and then you're gonna talk about what your immediate future is gonna look like as far as navigation and what you're expecting. And then you're gonna hike throughout the morning. There will be short breaks here and there for things that need taken care of, like water breaks, or inevitably someone needs a bathroom break. And then usually there's a sit down and enjoy the view or just relax type of mid-morning break that's maybe 20 minutes, and then you'll hike again till lunch, and that's more of an extended break, shoes and socks off, maybe go for a swim, and that's more like 45 minutes to an hour depending on what you all are trying to get done that day. And then the afternoon is pretty similar. Usually there's at least one longer break in there of maybe 20 minutes or so, and maybe a couple shorter breaks. And then most groups, it depends on the fitness level of the group you're in, but generally you're trying to roll into camp between, I'll say, like 5 and 6 p.m., get shelters set up, everyone will meet for dinner, and then you'll have dinner together. And then folks can do whatever they prefer to do. You can hang out and you can chat, or if you're needing some alone time, you can do that, or maybe you want to take some pictures or journal, whatever it is you want to do. But that's sort of the general structure for a day, and then you repeat for how many ever days the trip is.
Importantly, what we don't do is provide you with some kind of specific daily itinerary. So like you will not, nowhere on our website will you see like on day 2 we wake up at Agnew Meadows and we hike for 4.8 miles for lunch at this particular waterfall, and then we find our camp at after 7.5 hard miles of hiking at this pass. Like you will not find that. Every day we expect our guides to modify the route and the day, like, and the daily itinerary, like all the time.
Yes.
So it's just like we're very much doing it on the fly. We really want to fine tune our routes and our trips for the group that we have, not for some hypothetical group that we created for a website.
Yes.
Okay, typical group size for us, it's going to be 6 people on a few trips. I think actually just one, Katie's, that High Sierra Peaks trip. It's going to be 7 people, 7 clients for all the Alaska trips. And then it's going to be 8 people on 8 clients on every single other trip. And we have found, we've tried different group levels or group sizes, and like this is the sweet spot. 6 is great if everyone is like all on the same page, but I feel like it can feel a little low on personality, or maybe like not everyone finds a BFF in a group of 6. 7 is nice, and then 8 is kind of like the high end of the high end of like what is manageable, we think. And those are kind of my most. I think they're the best groups because best group size because like lots of personality, lots of different and interesting people to talk to and hang out with and learn from, and it's still manageable size though.
As far as group demographics, overall as a program, we have a 40% alumni return rate. That's been pretty consistent for many
Remarkably
years.
consistent for years, yeah.
And we usually have a 2-to-1 male to female ratio. That's program wide. It won't always be that way on each trip, and we strive to have variety on each trip, but it might vary a little bit depending on the location and the trip level that you're going to.
Can we actually go a little bit more granular on that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where?
I mean, I can go into detail on that. Yeah. So in trips where it might tend to be more male dominated and have fewer or maybe occasionally 0 females on it would be more often trips in Alaska and trips that are of like the longer length and
yeah, so it's correlated with, we end up with like the most mixed gender groups are going to be the shorter trips, like 5 days, more than 7 days, more than 11 days. And I would say fitness levels tends to get more male as you go higher. Yeah. But again, like we strongly prefer to have ideally 2 women on every trip.
Yes.
It makes a big difference. I've run a lot of all male groups, and all things being equal, don't enjoy them as much as having a couple women on it. And I think that's widely shared.
Yes. And I will say on this note, we do strive to pair a male and female guide team on most trips. Again, not all trips because sometimes logistically it just doesn't work because of the guides that we have available, but we do try to do our best with that as well. Sorry, I just had to comment on Luxor entering the studio.
Luxor has entered the studio. Come on, buddy. I want to show everybody your stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, bud. Come on. Yep.
Okay. So as far as how the age ranges are spread out amongst our applicants or clients, rather, it's usually about 20 to 25% in each decade for people who are in their 30s through 60s. So it's pretty good. Usually on most trips, you will end up with other people who are in all different phases of life, which I personally really enjoy. And last question, or at least part of demographics, do we take kids? We do, ideally with their parents. So if someone is in their teens, I don't think we've had anyone under 10 attend our trips.
No, I think that we don't have an official cutoff, but for me, it has to make sense. So, and like, especially as you get younger and younger, it has to make even more sense. So like having like a 12 or 13-year-old out, that's like a tough sell for me. But if they also have like no backpacking experience, that's going to be probably a no. Whereas if a kid is like 18, like I'd be more willing to entertain that. In all cases, and this applies to not just kids, but also like any groups that apply. We want everyone to be like thrilled about being on this trip, and we want everyone to be carrying their weight. So everyone who comes on the trip, like we want them to be there, or we want them to want to be there. So if anyone who feels like they're just getting dragged along, like they're also going to end up being kind of a drag on the group. And that applies to kids. It applies to spouses. Yeah. It applies to neighbors that you rallied, whatever it might be.
Yes. Okay. Andrew, what would you like to say about our guide team? Do you want to share? Well, we have maybe point out on the website where the bios are.
Yeah, if you can read the bios of the guide team here. We have not assigned guides to trips yet because we're not sure exactly what the schedule looks like. We won't know that for another month. But it's a really solid guide team. I wish they all lived closer. So
yes.
You kind of can't go wrong. And I've heard a lot of alumni say things like, like all of you are different, but I have enjoyed all of my trips.
Yes. Okay. Should we do some FAQs?
Yeah, but I would also love to hear it. You know, there are multiple handfuls of people
I was thinking that
this,
too.
sitting on this presentation, and they're all just, it's crickets and it's crickets. So if
Yeah,
anyone has a question, we'd love to hear it. You can use the chat. It's in like the right-hand side of the screen typically. So send it along. Just type it in there, and we would love to answer it.
Please interact with us.
I was about to say, we're going to start feeling self-conscious if no one.
Okay. All right. So, well, yes, as we go through some FAQs, please, everyone, post something in the chat. Post your own FAQ or post your own questions. So, the first category we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about preparation, logistics, the signature series, perhaps a little bit more in depth, Alaska, because everyone always has questions about Alaska, and then a few miscellaneous questions. So, as far as preparation, as we mentioned, we're very education focused. And so the first part of that starts with the planning curriculum that you're enrolled in 10 weeks out from the start of your trip. And that involves several modules, including assessing your conditions. It includes travel planning. It includes selecting your gear based on the conditions assessment that you've done. We talk about planning your food. We talk about making maps, both paper maps on Caltopo as well as using the Caltopo app, which we go more into in the field. And then there's a few like skills tutorials that we share in there that are really important that we like to share ahead of time. And then we also have a field curriculum that are things that we try to cover on most or all trips. And that's on that page that Andrew was just sharing as well.
Okay, we have an excellent question in the chat. And then the only other thing I'd like to add about the planning curriculum. So at its core, like the primary reason that we have this planning curriculum is to make sure that everyone shows up at the right time and at the right place with the gear and the food that they need and having signed the necessary forms. So like that is like the thing, that is like the key thing with it. But it's also designed so that you can basically like replicate the framework and apply it to trips of your own. So again, these trips are designed to be educational. We have this odd program mission of teaching people the skills necessary to go on trips of their own, which is like a horrible business model. It's like, right. But it seems to be working okay. So that is kind of what's going on with the planning curriculum. It's a unique offering that we have, and it's I think one of the big benefit for everybody who takes it, in addition to like learning information, is that you maximize your time in the field as part of the trip. So like we'll usually meet at like 8 or 9 a.m. depending on the location and the time of year. You're gone, you're walking within 90 minutes. So there's no like, day in a conference room somewhere where we go through your gear and we do some seminars on like lightweight gear, and where we talk about how much food you should have per day. Like all that's done. So it's just we're able to better utilize your vacation days by doing all this work ahead of time.
Yes, and I'll mention you get one-on-one feedback from an instructor on everything as you're going through the planning curriculum. So any questions that you have that's coming up in the planning process, you can get them answered by a human.
Yep. So we have a question. So someone wants to know about the difference between the fundamentals trips versus the adventure, and specifically what skills are taught on the fundamentals trip versus the adventure, and if there's any instruction at all on the adventure trips. How would you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that curriculum that we were just talking about, the field curriculum, is taught ideally as much of it as we can is taught on each trip, whether it's fundamentals, adventure, or expedition. But the degree to which we go into detail about each of these topics is different depending on which of the trips that we're teaching, whether it's fundamentals, adventure, expedition. So as you can imagine, on the fundamentals trip, we'll go really deep into some of the more entry-level skills like shelter setup and stove use, whereas we might just do a brief overview reminder for people on an adventure level trip. And on an expedition level trip, we would expect everyone to know how to use all of their gear. Not that we wouldn't answer questions, of course we would, but we wouldn't go into as much detail as we would on a fundamentals level trip. And another thing I would say is that on the adventure and the expedition, because there is less time spent on covering some of the more foundational pieces, there's more time for putting into practice off-trail navigation, and you probably will get a little bit further because there's a little mileage-wise, because there's a little bit less time spent on instruction. So definitely there's still instruction on all of the trips. That's a big piece of what we do on any level trip, but the type of instruction will be a little bit different depending on the experience level of the participants.
So let me give you some very specific examples. On a fundamentals level trip, like at least on one of the nights, and particularly early on, I will do a shelter tour with my group where all the shelters have been pitched, and as a group we'll walk around and we'll do like a tour of shelters, talking about the pros and cons and different fabrics, because for beginner backpackers, they haven't seen a lot of these shelters, maybe online, maybe not, and they're not as familiar with different geometries and different fabric types. So I will always do that with a fundamentals group. With an adventure level group, it's like people who are more familiar with this equipment, already own this equipment. I might do it if we have some extra time one night, but it's not going to be like a guaranteed part of the experience. Another example would be, so say, let me flip the other way. Something that we will teach on, like on an expedition level trip. So like our expedition level trips, say like in Alaska, like we're going to be, they're going to exit from those trips being like very, very good at fording rivers, like scary, like swift, deep rivers. And that's not something that we're typically going to teach on a fundamentals course, because we wouldn't run a fundamentals course in an environment where that skill is required.
Yes. Okay. There's another question in the chat. You mentioned the wilderness first aid course. I am with the NSP.
Yeah, what is that?
I'm not sure. And attend an annual refresher for first aid. Do you still require the wilderness first aid?
For the trip leader course, it's not the wilderness first aid course is not a requirement, but it's something that we're going to strongly encourage. I mean, if you're a trip leader, you should have some wilderness medical training. And if you want to take any of the other courses, it's not a required thing. We only offer it, I think we're only offering it once this year, right? Mm-hmm. So we're offering it April 21st in Escalante, Utah, immediately before session 1. So it's an optional training. There is an extra charge for it, although it's below market because we want to make it accessible and we want people to take it.
Yep. Okay. So next FAQ in our preparation category is, how much equipment do I need? So we will, as part of the planning curriculum, we will provide a gear spreadsheet for you to fill out, and it will list many potential items. Oh, National Ski Patrol. Okay. Mm-hmm. It will list many potential items that you could take, and then it indicates whether we consider that item critical or optional, essentially, for that location. So we'll sort of provide a gear list, and then we'll have you fill in the items that you plan to bring. And then an instructor will review that list based on the location you're attending, and then give you recommendations, whether that's great, your list looks good, or this item, this backpack, this tent, this whatever is perfect, or you might consider this other option, and they will list a few different varieties or a few different options of a backpack or a tent or trekking poles or shoes or whatever it is for you to choose from. And I would say the thing that's really helpful about that is that they help you fine tune your gear for the specific location. So for instance, footwear in Utah is really important. Footwear is important everywhere, but Utah, for instance, it's very important to have footwear that's sand resistant. And so they will work with you to find the appropriate footwear for Utah, for example. If you do not have all of the equipment that you need for a trip, we do have a gear library that comes out as part of the planning curriculum, and it's first come, first serve. And we don't have clothing items, but we do have all of the big things you might need, like a backpack, tent, stove, compass, trekking poles. So if you don't have an item, or if you're just wanting to try something out that's new and something that we have, you're welcome to sign up for that.
We have a good question coming through the chat. So I'm one of the folks who are hung up on fitness levels. Can you explain perceived fitness relative to peers? I'm significantly fitter than 44-year-old women as a whole, but I'd say I'm right in the middle if we're talking about outdoorsy women. So this is on the application form. Yeah, there's a question that says, like, describe your fitness relative to your peers, and that's one of the. Let me back up a little bit. The most helpful question, if it's filled with good information, like if it has a good response, is the tell us about your most notable backpacking trips. And like a good answer would be, I hike. I'm just gonna make something up, but like you'll notice the detail I'm providing. I have gone on 5 backpacking trips. They have all been long weekends, except for one that was a 5-night trip. And I could explain, maybe the answer would include where. And on each of these trips, I hiked about 15 miles a day, and that felt like a sustainable effort. Like it didn't crush me, but it didn't feel like it was too easy. And Katie's like, Katie reads that, and she's like, I know exactly how to place this person. It gets much harder when someone doesn't have a lot of backpacking experience. Suppose it's been just like 2 or 3 trips, and one of them was with a Boy Scouts, and another one with a few friends who are of different fitness levels, and then maybe the other one was like on your own, but it was just kind of short. Like that's a little bit difficult. So what we then do is we look at a bunch of other factors. We look at your age, your gender. We look at where you're from. We height and weight, which gives us some BMI. We ask for a weekly fitness regimen, like what you're doing like for fitness on a weekly basis. We ask if you smoke. We ask if you have any experience with class 3 or class 5 terrain. Katie, what else do we ask? Because that's probably the extent of it.
Those are the big ones.
So, and that question about like fitness relative to peers, just think about the people think about the women who are in your life who are around the same age, and just, are you like about as fit? Are you like average fitness, more fit, less fit, like way fitter? Because what we can do is then we can kind of extrapolate a little bit, because if someone says, and this is definitely has happened before, like you have like I'm just thinking of Pat Kelly. So a 68-year-old male from Boulder, Colorado describes himself as in like average fitness relative to peers, but he lives in Boulder, Colorado, which is like, everyone's an Olympian. And that's a very different answer if you're, say, from Katie, where's mom?
Ohio.
Yeah, if you're like someone who's, say, from Ohio, like a little bit more middle America, or where I'm from in Massachusetts, and they say like I'm in average fitness, that kind of means something different.
So yeah, so it's more as a whole, and where you are versus like just outdoorsy people.
It's probably a long response, but hopefully everyone appreciates that we are very thoughtful and like intentional with how we do this. So we've got a question in the chat, Katie. How much additional weight or volume of gear might a person need to carry in order to support the group in addition to their normal load?
That's a great question. So the only additional group items that you would be expected to carry is a portion of the group food. And that's usually around a pound. I would say less than 2 pounds. It'll vary a little bit depending on the length of the trip. Obviously, 11-day trip, we're all carrying a decent amount of group food. But there's nothing else that clients are expected to carry. Guides will carry additional items like a first aid kit and sometimes a tarp and some Aquamira water treatment for the group. But as far as the clients, the only additional weight is just expect to have a little extra volume and to be carrying an extra pound or 2 on top of what your own items and your own food weigh.
Yeah, and well, in truth be told, like it might not actually be any extra weight or volume, because you would have to be carrying food anyway. And like, so basically what happens though with the group food, like you're carrying the entire group's ration of something. So for example, like on most trips we send out about either a 32 or 40 ounce block of cheese, and someone is going to carry that whole block of cheese. But for other nights, someone else will be carrying the peanut sauce or the Parmesan cheese or the bacon or other things that go into the group meals.
This would be a good opportunity to talk about how our meals work in case anyone hasn't read about that. So we provide, as a program, we provide breakfasts and dinners for everybody. And then you are responsible for bringing all of your own snacks, lunches, anything that you need to eat between breakfast and dinner, as well as any drinks that you want, whether that's electrolytes or coffee or tea or anything like that. So we, at the trailhead, we will give you all your breakfast rations, all your dinner rations, and then, as we were just talking about, some portion of the group food. And then for each meal, say that first night at dinner or every meal thereafter, we're all going to eat the same meal at the same time. So maybe that night we're going to eat beans and rice. So everyone's going to get their individual serving of beans and rice. And then we're going to ask who's carrying the cheese, who's carrying the Fritos, and we're going to collect those group items. We're going to divide them up into the appropriate number of servings, and we're going to hand those out. And then that's how we do group meals and group food. And we can't accommodate dietary restrictions. I'll just mention that right now as well. We send out a form in classrooms. So if you are vegan or vegetarian or gluten-free or have any other dietary restrictions, we can usually accommodate those pretty well. And we'll ask you about that in that planning curriculum.
So this is, let's go back to fitness levels. So Katie, there are two questions that we have that we wanted to address. One is, the first question is, how can I improve my fitness level so that I can go on specific trips? So I think for the sake of, like, given the timing, you should put in with your current fitness level, and you should trust us in how we place you. And if you end up on, if you end up as one of the fitter people in your group, then that's awesome. What we don't want to do to anyone, we try really hard to avoid this, is placing someone in a group where every day they're just even just a little bit overextended, because over the course of like 5 days or 7 days or 11 days, that really adds up. So our recommendation is, like, if there are trips that you really want to sort of join, but you don't have the fitness level for it, like, probably better, like, just to go in with the fitness that you have and go on a trip that's appropriate for your fitness, and we can maybe reassess in a future season.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that I understand the temptation to really, like, push your physical limits as much as possible on a trip that you're going on, but I have found, observed multiple times on trips, when someone is stretched too far physically, it really not just lowers their overall enjoyment of the trip, but also makes them it makes it more difficult to really absorb much of the learning, because you're just too worked to pay attention to off-trail navigation or to really engage with the different curriculums that take place, whether that's map and compass or we're talking about water treatment or anything like that. So I have noticed it, like, hinders learning a little bit. So.
Yeah, you'd be better off, like, sort of playing it a little bit short with us and being on a trip that you know you belong, versus being overextended. And then if you want to go out on your own and destroy yourself, like, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we get it.
The other question related to fitness is how to train for vertical terrain if you live anywhere where it's flat. So, like, say, like the Midwest or Florida or Texas. I guess that would include maybe the Midwest, although Texans probably disagree with that. The answer is that you have to get creative. So, and it's not nearly as easy as if you live in a mountainous place. So, Katie, first, we will send you a post or send you, like, some training guidance. Like, you don't necessarily need to remember what I'm saying here, but treadmill, cranked up,
Stair stepper can help with that.
Stair stepper in a gym, or any stairs you can find access to. So, like, stadium stairs,
parking
garage stairs, apartment high-rise stairs. I don't know if I ever told you this, Katie. Last year I had a guy on a trip. He's from Vegas, and he, like, lives downtown. So he would just train in the stairwells in the casinos.
Nice. I didn't hear that. That's great.
Then, which was great until, like, security, like, rained on his parade one day. But, like, he's got, like, his backpack on, and they're like, "What are you doing? We've been watching you on the security cameras for an hour."
That's pretty great.
Yeah. So those are your best bets. It is, if you are going to a vertical place, so that would include California, and that would include Alaska, would not necessarily include Utah. It is imperative that you do some vertical training. It is you definitely use different, like, muscles when you're hiking in mountainous terrain than when you do on the flats.
Yep. There's a question in the chat. How often do you find clients struggling with altitude? That is probably my biggest concern of any backcountry challenges. I'm in Pennsylvania, so I'm maxed out at 3,000 feet. That's a great consideration. In California, in our High Sierra trips, that is the number one reason that we that have to evacuate people, unfortunately. In the other locations, it usually doesn't come into play that much, but in the High Sierra, that it often does. And our recommendation would be to allow yourself at least 2 days, 48 hours on the front of your schedule, camping at somewhere, say, at like 8,000 feet at a campground there, and to do a couple of short hikes on your first couple of days there to help yourself acclimate. But I would say, yeah, giving yourself at least 2 to 3 days. Yes, it takes more time and resources to do that, but it's so much better to take the time to do that rather than to have to be walked out on a trip that you've spent several weeks and months preparing for.
And there's lots to see and do while you're acclimatizing.
Absolutely.
Like if you're coming out from Pennsylvania and you've never been out to the High Sierra before, like take a day and go down to Yosemite Valley, or take a day and go to Rhodes End and go swim on Muir Rock.
Okay, let's keep moving.
Okay.
Travel to and from the trailhead. So some folks in the office hours asked this question last week too, of how do we provide transportation? We do not. We will give you a place, a date, and a time to meet us. However, what we do provide is in the Google Classroom planning curriculum, we will provide a way for you to connect with everyone else who is going to that location. And so you can connect specifically with people, not just in your trip, but anyone else who's on session 1, for example, who's going to be at the same place at the same time. And we provide a room and ride sharing spreadsheet, and people use it quite a bit, so that you can connect with other people to, say, share a rental car or share a hotel room if that's something that you would like to do. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty fun when we see groups of groups of 4 rolling in a rental car and in a Ford Taurus.
Yeah, and they're like
which I don't even think exists anymore. Chevy Malibu or a Nissan Altima. 4 people with backpacks. Okay, let's move on to just a quick one. If anyone out there is considering the 11-day trip, big question on your mind is, do we get a resupply?
I would say don't count on it.
Yeah, the answer is probably not.
Yeah,
we think we've looked at doing resupplies, and just at the end of the day, we never think that they're worthwhile. Like for the marginal amount of food weight, it's can be a significant expense. So like in Alaska, it would be an enormous expense. It'd be the most expensive food you've ever eaten in your life, including like in the finest restaurants of San Francisco or Manhattan. But the bigger thing is just we don't want to hinder our flexibility. So we think it's better just 11 days of food and head on out there, hike slow for the first couple days, and find your legs. And at some point, one morning you'll pick up your backpack and you go, oh, finally it feels light.
Yeah,
it's manageable.
All right, in the chat, there's a question for the Alaska trip, where I assume almost everyone is flying in. Do you provide a place to store additional baggage that we won't be backpacking with? We do. So we will provide for all of our Alaska clients, we have a specific, what's called a Brooks Range planner. It's a multi-tab spreadsheet. One of those tabs will have a hotel where we'll have a group room rate at, and it also has a luggage storage room, because we as the guides are also storing things as well. And then is a 55-liter backpack sufficient for an 11-day carry? If you are very efficient with your food packing, I think you'll be just fine. Okay. I think we should jump down to these Alaska questions, since we have 6 minutes left of our plan to talk.
Or maybe we could do rapid fire. Yeah. Do you want to do Okay, so let's see. So, Ralph asks, are you running multiple versions of the 11-day expedition trips in Alaska and California? I see that both high and ultra fitness levels are checked, but it looks like only one trip date. Yeah, so it's a little funny this year with the way the schedule reads. I know what you're saying. So our Alaska trips will be probably, we're going to run up to 8 trips, so 2 sessions with 4 trips in each session. And the start days are all staggered. So we're going to start like June 18, June 19, June 20, June 21. And the 7 and 11-day trips, we have trips we're open to running trips between moderate and ultra fitness for both 7 and 11-day trips. But then there's also within those dates, there's going to be a signature series trip, and that will be limited to high and ultra, which is why there was really like no better way to read that. And I try to leave some remarks in the comments, just that comment column at the very right side to make it clear, but I understand the confusion. And that's, yes, Billy. Let's see. Billy asks, how often do flights in and out of the Brooks Range get delayed as a result of weather? Sometimes, but not often. So, Katie, have you been stuck in Anaktuvik yet?
Oh, yes. I have.
For a night or just for like
for a night?
For a night.
Both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's no fun when it happens, but it tends not to.
Okay. It's not. I would say it's not entirely uncommon, though.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. But this past year we didn't have any flights that got delayed or canceled. Yep. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. The one flight that we will sometimes have problems with, we generally do pretty well. There's a reason why we're going to the Brooks Range when we do. It's because the weather tends to be kind of stable. But it's like northern Alaska. For like American standards, it is like the ends of the earth. Things just don't operate there as predictably and as efficiently as they do down here. Like we're really far out. So, and my attitude on the plane thing, I'm like, look, if the pilot who flies this route every day doesn't want to fly, cool. I am going to just hang out and wait for when the weather clears.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. It's part of the experience.
Go back to my through hiker routes by raiding the village store in Anaktuvik for something that's edible. Yeah. Good luck.
Yes.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes. I think, Katie, we probably should just call it at 6. So let's see. Can I apply for multiple trips? Yes. In the application form, there'll be a question that asks you that. It'll tell you what to do if you want to apply for multiple trips. Just note that our policy is to give everybody to offer everybody a spot before we offer anybody 2. But historically speaking, if you apply in December, we probably are going to be able to find you a second spot or your first spot. It's just a matter of you being kind of patient and flexible. If I take a trip in the Sierra, which trailhead will my trip start at? We don't know the answer to that question yet either. We're just kind of operating on the Park Service timeline, so we can secure wilderness permits in January for Sequoia Kings. We can secure wilderness permits for Yosemite in February. And until we lock those down, we can't decide who's going where. So you can't go wrong for any of the High Sierra locations. And if you are like really steadfast that you want to go to a particular location, and if you don't get that one, we will try to work with you to find a transfer, which usually people are open to. Do all of your trips fill up? Yes.
Usually. Yep.
Yeah. Last year, so at the end of the open application period last year, Katie and I made all the groups, and we had something like 55 trips, and I don't know, like 420 spots open or something, and there was 3 openings. And I printed it out and I mailed a copy to Katie.
We did email a physical copy.
I was like, here's your wall art. Yeah, good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reject applicants? We occasionally reject applicants, but it's pretty rare. It either has to be like a really poor fit, so like someone who doesn't have the fitness necessary for even like our basic level fitness, or someone who is just like, Alaska or bust, man. I'm like, well, like you haven't gone on a backpacking trip before, like it's just not going to happen. So then they get kind of pulled out of the pile too.
Yeah.
But we try.
For folks who apply with the appropriate experience for the trips to which they're applying, and especially when they give us multiple dates to work with and trip options to work with, we almost always find at least a way to offer either their first choice or their second choice trip.
Yep.
Okay.
We want to talk about Alaska real quick. We could also say no. And I do want to just say hi to Ralph.
Yeah.
What's up, Chip? One of my faves.
Yeah.
This goes way back to 2013.
It's a long ways.
It's a long ways.
The early days, yeah.
The early days, man. Yeah. And he tells me stories from that trip that I don't remember anymore. Like apparently, like one of the group members like fell into a lake eating breakfast one morning, and I'm like, no, don't remember.
Locked it out. Yeah.
All right, we can do Alaska real quick. So, Katie, how competitive are the Alaska spots?
Very competitive.
Is it possible if you're a first-time applicant that you might be offered a spot anyway?
If you have the requisite experience, personal experience on your own, yes.
What is the baseline fitness level required for Alaska?
We'll likely, as long as we can find 8 other applicants of a similar fitness level, we will offer fitness from moderate to ultra.
7 other applicants unless you find another spot on the plane.
Yes, sorry, 7.
And if I fare poorly with mosquitoes, which Alaska session would be best?
I mean, I think it's
session 1.
Yeah, I would say if you really hate mosquitoes, though, it may not be the location for you.
Yeah, but mosquitoes are not nearly as bad as like they've been bad on every couple of years they get kind of bad, but they've never set like a lifetime worst for me. We're not at the time of the year where they are horrific, which is intentional. Yeah, but if you came back in like another month, woohoo!
There's actually, I recently learned 2 different species of mosquitoes too. The ones that come out early are more like slow and sluggish, and then the ones that come later are the ones that like are a little dodgy.
Roman once described them. He said he's like the ones that come out early in the season. You can think of those like the B-52s. Like they're like slow to move. They're easy to kill.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the season, those like Russian MiGs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it there. If anyone has questions that they didn't answer or didn't ask in the chat, like, come on, here's your chance. But you're also, of course, welcome to text or email Katie and me, and we'll get back to you pretty promptly. But hopefully, thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. Hopefully you got something out of this. Help make your decision. And remember, application deadline is Sunday, December 21st. Okay, thanks, Katie.
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.